Robert, is this end finish called like oblique braiding or something to that effect? Yeah, no, sure.
It is today. Anyway.
It is today. The warps from here to here are cotton. The warps in the dark area are wool, and the warps over there are cotton again. And the reason it looks the way it does up there is that end finish is called oblique something, some sort of an end finish that they do in Curd or some such place, Hamadan. That's kind of interesting. I mean, it's a fairly old rug, and it's kind of interesting to point it out to the customer. They may think there's something wrong with it. Or maybe the cotton's real dirty beforehand and you wash it and now you've got this real big difference here and they think you've done something to it. So knowing construction, but sometimes you'll have a rug that has no red in it at all and you'll wash it and the next morning you'll have red dots all over it and you're going, where the heck did that come from? Now in this particular rug, this wasn't one that happened. This was another one that I was cutting out and putting a patch in where they had had a pot plant. And when we cut it, there was some red right there where when the rug's on the loom, they're kind of marking places so they can keep themselves squared up and level and keep everything lined up. And you're using a little red dye of some sort, and then the rug gets washed and that red dye pops up from the interior of the rug, and now you know where it came from, but you can't prevent that ahead of time.
Surprise.
Okay. Now, how come the fringe is ivory and then blue and then ivory, and then on the end, on the other end, it's the same way? What is that? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Where is Bueller? Decided to use them for warps right in the middle of the rug, and so you have this blue in the end. So again, you want to point that out to the customer, they'll think you got blue in their rug.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't you, Ellen. It was somebody else. That guard border around the rug.
On the outside, on the back. In the back of the rug, not the front.
And why they think that Americans want to have a rug on the back that has blue warps and wefts is a mystery to me. But they've done that, and you don't catch it in your pre-cleaning inspection. You're focusing on the front and not the back. You wash the rug and you hang it up, and now you've got blue coming into the fringe. So again, these are
we get so conscious of things. When something comes up, then that makes you become more aware in the future. This is a T-wash fringe on an India rug. And again, when they do the T-wash on the fringe, this cotton is all spun tight. So then they spray it on or dab it on, however they apply it. And then when it wears and it unspins, then you've got all this white cotton that wasn't stained originally, so they'll claim you took the T-wash out of it. So these are things that you need to mark on your pre-cleaning inspection. You get accused of everything.
Classic problem with dry rot is where a planter has been put on the rug and they've watered it for months. That moisture's gone through and you have a dry rot spot on the rug. Base yarns. It can be repaired. It can, if the value of the rug is there, someone could go back in and you wash them and they become a trapezoid. So you're going to have to set up a work area where you can tack the rug out and block it. I said earlier we'd show you briefly how this is done. In this particular case with the needle point, the rug has been washed and in this case it was dry. The rug is lined up on a straight edge on that floor with the knee kicker, squaring it up, and then wetting the back of the rug so that it draws up on this tap. Plain water. Rugs, certainly that is not a square rug. You do have runners, and you take a look at them and they are not square and the customer wants them corrected. They can be tacked to the floor and secured properly. And in this case, this is what a customer uses up in the Northwest. They actually take car jacks and a pipe and jack them up, getting them one side a little bit higher or lower. It's just by sight of eye, and pulling them up and wetting out the back of the rug and letting them sit overnight. So it's possible to correct this stuff, again, if you're in a plant environment and you have a little bit of experience with this. As I said earlier, when you have natural fibers, you want to pre-qualify with your customer that particularly with the urine there can be issues. No promises, but if there is some dye bleed in a rug, it is possible to correct it. Now, we have, and what I'm going to do is attempt to get this up on the projector for you, and we're going to correct one of these areas where we have dye bleed. So hopefully everyone will be able to see this up on the screen.
Yeah, in a nutshell,
Yeah.
without going into too
Right.
much elaboration. To give you the quick history, when in the late 19th century, when Oriental rugs started to become popular again in the United States and Europe, they hadn't been doing a lot of commercial weaving. So they went over there, over to the Middle East, and bought up all the old rugs. And since there hadn't been a lot of commercial weaving, the source dried up. So that's when the revival of the Oriental rug industry, as we sort of know it today, maybe, started in the late 19th century. They started really getting their production back in gear with the help of the West, Europe and the United States. What they found out was that those rugs that they were making then were new, and that these other rugs they had been getting were old, and they looked better. They were kind of worn, they had mellowed, they had a better patina. So they tried to figure out what can we do to speed this process up. So they came up with chemical washing that, you know, basically is...
Like for jeans?
Yeah, caustic soda and what else, and chlorine bleach, okay? And they put those on the rugs, they work it in. It helps to mute the colors. It takes the scales off of the wool so it reflects light more evenly. And what was the question originally? Why did we get off on? Oh, because it made the fringe rotten.
Right.
Yeah, so when they do this, in Turkey, I've seen them do it. They get it pretty well rinsed, not great, and then they hang them in a dry room, and all that stuff drips down and ends up in the fringe. The more a rug is chemically washed, I think Pakistan Bokharas, Pakistan Persians, they were heavily chemically washed, and the fringe is rotten now, more than other types of rugs that weren't so aggressively chemically washed. So that's part of the reason that cotton gets so rotten.